stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One. From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Hello and welcome to the West Asia Post. I am Redi Francis coming to you from Mount Lebanon for a new episode of WION's weekly show where we bring you all things new from a region where the front line is constantly changing. In Iran, a new approach towards the east. Iran is trying to acquire high-tech missiles from China as China and Russia are trying to shield Tehran from European sanctions in the United Nations. In Yemen, the Houthi Ansarullah have their missiles flying over the Red Sea and over Israel, this after Israel killed their prime minister. And in Venice Film Festival, a Palestinian 5-year-old Hind Rajab was the star. Her final moments were deserving of a movie that took a very long standing ovation in the festival. All this is lined up, but first, the headlines. A battered Iran is now looking east as it courts the dragon in Beijing's lair. A secret deal, a secret missile deal with China and Russia and China trying to shield Iran from the upcoming European sanctions in the United Nations. We tell you more in this report.
The air over West Asia crackles with uncertainty as Tehran claws its way back from a punishing conflict with Israel. Iran's prized missile arsenal, once the backbone of its regional deterrence, lies empty. Now in the diplomatic shadows, the Iranian lion has found a dance partner in the Chinese dragon. In Beijing's heart, as red banners billowed and troops marched in breathtaking formation, Iran's president took his seat beside power players Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin. This wasn't just diplomacy, it was spectacle, as China's massive parade sent a booming message, a world order restraint to Western dominance. In Beijing, Chinese President Xi Jinping met with Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian, where the two leaders vowed to deepen their partnership.
China is willing to work with the international community, including Iran, to promote the building of a more just and equitable global governance system and join hands to build a community with a shared future for humanity.
Iran attaches great importance to developing relations with China and regards China as a comprehensive strategic partner. No matter how the international and regional situation evolves, we are willing to work with China to implement the 25-year comprehensive cooperation plan between our two countries.
The West has long accused China of supplying weapons to Iran. Now, there are reports that Chinese engineers are reportedly providing technical know-how and training to Iran's military-industrial complex. Discreetly rebuilding what the war destroyed. Again in Beijing, the Iranian president held another important meeting with his Russian counterpart, Putin. Russia and China are together speaking out against the new European sanctions at the United Nations, signaling a unified Eastern front for embattled Tehran. Beijing and Moscow have formed a diplomatic shield, joining Iran to vehemently reject European moves to restore crippling sanctions on Tehran. Their message is unified and clear. The era of uncontested Western pressure is over.
In the most recent strike, Israel killed the Prime Minister and many members of the Yemeni cabinet. So the Yemeni Ansarullah Houthis, in retaliation, are firing missiles, and this standoff has exacerbated into the hallways of the United Nations headquarters. We tell you more.
A fireball of conflict erupts in the Red Sea. The Houthis say their missiles slammed into the Scarlet Ray, an Israel-owned Liberian-flagged tanker. Maritime officials say the strike missed. A huge splash, a deafening blast, but the Israelis say the ship pushed on. Houthis claimed another strike in the northern Red Sea on a vessel they say is linked to Israel, but the barrage didn't stop. The Iran-backed rebels fired a ballistic missile which carried cluster munitions towards Tel Aviv. Sirens howled, the region froze.
The missile force of the Yemeni armed forces carried out a significant and dual military operation using 2 ballistic missiles, one of them being the Palestine II cluster missile with multiple warheads used for the second time, and the other being the Dulfiqar.
For the Houthis, the message is clear. The Red Sea is a battlefield, and Israeli shipping is a target. This attack comes on the heels of a stunning blow. Israeli strikes have killed the Houthi Prime Minister Ahmad Ghalib al-Rahawi and top officials in his government. The Houthis are calling them martyrs. Israel is calling it a strategic victory. The funeral turned into a defiant display of anger, and that revenge is already unfolding. Houthi fighters stormed UN offices in Sanaa and Hodeida, seizing 11 staff members, adding to dozens of others already held. The UN is demanding their immediate, unconditional release, but the rebels insist they've exposed a web of spies masquerading as aid workers. The raid has sent shockwaves through humanitarian agencies. The World Food Programme admits its own employees are now in detention, UNICEF too. Inside Yemen, the public is agitated. People call the strike that killed the Prime Minister cowardly and brutal and condemn the celebrations after a comedian danced online as news of the death broke. The rhetoric is white hot. Houthi leaders accuse Israel of savagery. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu fires back, warning the rebels will pay a heavy price. The Houthis control northern Yemen and since October have launched wave after wave of missiles and drones towards Israel. Now they are hitting tankers, detaining aid workers and vowing escalation. Yemen is already locked in a decade-long civil war. But the Red Sea has become a new flashpoint in the Israel-Gaza war. A front where every missile, every raid and every death ripples far beyond the shores of Yemen.
The war in Gaza is not being only fought on the streets. Now the fight is already inside the minds of the Israeli soldiers. Our next report tells you more.
The war in Gaza sees no bounds. Tens of thousands of reservists are being called back to duty. A massive mobilization order that sounds like a rallying cry but feels more like a burden for many. According to reports, 60,000 men and women have been summoned for an expanded offensive into Gaza City. One of the last strongholds outside Israeli control. The orders are clear, but the decisions are not. For some, it is seen as a matter of duty and survival. Officers who have spent hundreds of days on the front insist the war cannot be stopped. Midway, that Israel must keep fighting not just for its own security, but also as a defense of what they call democratic values worldwide.
The government does different things in order to stay in power, including, and that's the worst case, including maintaining this war in an ongoing struggle for no reason.
Soldiers have even compared themselves to cannon fodder as they face Hamas's guerrilla warfare, from IEDs to booby traps every step of their way. Yet the government has no plans of stopping, putting the lives of thousands of soldiers at stake.
In another joint operation, the Shin Bet and the IDF targeted Hamas spokesperson, the spokesperson of the murderous evil organization Abu Ubaida.
I want to tell you that nowhere does the IDF offer anything less than decisive victory. We will not stop the war until we defeat this enemy.
The calls to resist are growing louder. In Tel Aviv this week, hundreds of reservists announced they would not return to duty if ordered into Gaza City. They described the government's strategy as illegal, politically motivated and dangerous to both soldiers and hostages. The families of hostages are echoing the same concern. Scuffles broke between protesters and police in Jerusalem this week during a large rally outside the residence of Prime Minister Netanyahu. The demonstration marked a culmination of a day of protests in Jerusalem, where many marched near the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, hoping their voices will be heard by the government.
We need to get the hostages back. The government needs to get them back. It's their job to get them back, and we've been waiting way too long.
But polls capture the contradictions. 3/4 of Israelis want a deal to free hostages. Yet nearly 3/4 of Jewish Israelis also say they accept the government's narrative that there are no innocents in Gaza. Many soldiers mirror that conflict, taking part in protests against the war on weekends, only to return to the front line days later. The IDF's Chief of Staff has called reservists a precious natural resource, but it is a resource under strain, stretched to the limit, deeply divided and questioning its own purpose.
At Venice, a Tunisian filmmaker has made history, a 23-minute standing ovation for the movie Hind Rajab. Hind Rajab is a 5-year-old girl from Gaza that was killed in this war. Her final moments are a moving testimony. We tell you more.
The glamour of Venice was briefly interrupted by a moment of collective silence, followed by a wave of emotion that lasted 23 minutes. That was the ovation for the voice of Hind Rajab, a Tunisian film that left festival goers stunned and in tears. The film retells the harrowing final hours of a 5-year-old Palestinian girl, trapped in a car under fire during the Gaza war, built around real recordings of her calls to rescuers. The movie refuses to show violence directly, instead, placing audiences inside the desperation and fear that surrounded her inside the theater. The response was unlike any other this festival. Audiences stood, clapped, and many chanted in solidarity with Palestine. Critics called it a defining moment of cinema, one that pushed Venice beyond art and into the realities of war.
There was a moment where I really deep inside I felt we're gonna rescue that little girl. And that, like, for me, I remember we chatted about this, like, let's save her even in our imagination.
Outside, the festival's red carpet glitz gave way to protests. Hundreds marched across the Lido, calling for an end to the bombardment in Gaza. Actors, students, and filmmakers joined together, holding banners and demanding that the spotlight be used to amplify the voices of those caught in the conflict. This dual scene, tears inside the cinema and chants on the streets, turned Venice into a stage for both art and activism.
E aderisce senza riserve, appoggia con orgoglio la chiamata di piazza di oggi, una chiamata.
Directed by Oscar-nominated Tunisian filmmaker Houthi Ben Hania, the film is already a strong contender for the Golden Lion.
The most important thing is that the voice of Hind Rajab reaches everybody all over the world. And the Oscar and Venice here are a great doorway, you know, so the movie can be seen.
As the credits rolled, one message was clear: this is not just a movie. It is a voice from the rubble of Gaza, demanding to be heard on the world's biggest stages.
A football legend, a tourism destination, and the kingdom reinventing itself. Cristiano Ronaldo has now become the face of Saudi Arabia's reinvented image. A campaign that says, come for football, stay for much more. Take a look.
Cristiano Ronaldo, one of the biggest names in football and perhaps the most famous expat in Saudi Arabia, is now fronting the kingdom's latest global tourism campaign. Titled, I Came for Football, I Stayed for More, the campaign is part of Saudi Welcome to Arabia, and it shines a spotlight on everything the kingdom has to offer.
Everyone's crazy about football.
From sporting spectacles to cultural celebrations, from luxury experiences to iconic landscapes.
I came for football, I stay for more.
The choice of Ronaldo is strategic. He's not just a global football icon, he's also a symbol of Saudi's transformation. What began with his move to the Saudi Pro League is now a full-fledged partnership, with Ronaldo showcasing a country that is reinventing itself for the world. Today, the kingdom wants to be seen as a place where heritage and modernity blend, a destination that can host blockbuster sports, fashion shows, film festivals and esports tournaments, all while offering authentic cultural experiences. Since 2018, Saudi has hosted over 100 mega events. And the list ahead is dazzling. The FIFA World Cup 2034, the AFC Asian Cup 2027, the Esports Olympics, the Asian Winter Games, Formula 1, WWE showpieces, Live Golf and boxing blockbusters like Fury vs USYK. You name it, the Saudis have it. Culture too is front and center. The Red Sea International Film Festival, Riyadh Fashion Week, Biennales and the famous Riyadh and Jeddah seasons that draw global music, comedy and entertainment acts. All of this is deeply tied to Vision 2030, the plan to diversify the economy beyond oil. With $800 billion invested into tourism, the kingdom is aiming to welcome 150 million visitors and turn the industry into a multi-billion-dollar powerhouse by year 2030. So the message is simple. Ronaldo came for football and the world is invited to stay for much more.
Now let's take a look at some other stories making the headlines across West Asia.
Tehran is grinding to a halt as rolling power outages wreak havoc across the city. Electricity cuts have become routine, disrupting water, internet and daily life in the sweltering 40-degree heat. Officials blame fuel shortages, drought, soaring demand and an aging power grid, but the impact is felt most by small businesses. From restaurants to bakeries and butcher shops, owners are forced to throw away spoiled goods, lose online orders and lay off staff. With inflation surging and the currency in free fall, power cuts have become one more blow to an economy already on the brink. Even authorities concede electricity rationing is unavoidable, leaving Iranians to struggle through unpredictable blackouts and daily losses. In the arid lands of southern Oman lies a treasure that shines brighter than gold, frankincense, known locally as white gold. The Dhaka Valley in Dhofar, bordering Yemen, is the world's largest reserve of frankincense trees, a UNESCO World Heritage Site with some 5,000 trees scattered across the desert. Their fragrant sap has been harvested for millennia, a trade that once connected ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, Rome, and even China. Today, this resin still commands luxury status, from market beads of fragrance to perfumes costing up to $2,000 a bottle. For locals, it's not just a scent, but a legacy, a treasure of the desert that continues to carry Oman's history and heritage to the world. A sharp warning from Abu Dhabi, the United Arab Emirates has told Israel that any move to annex the West Bank would cross a red line and shatter the vision of regional integration. UAE has put this out just days before Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is set to hold high-level consultations on the controversial issue. The message comes ahead of the 5th anniversary of the Abraham Accords and marks the strongest public signal. Yet that annexation could deal a strategic blow to peace and kill off the two-state solution. The UAE's words echo the pre-Accords warning issued by Emirates in 2020.
That's all we have for you on this episode of the West Asia Post. I will see you next week with a brand new lineup, always bringing you the most recent updates, news and ground reports from the world's most volatile region. I am Redi Francis signing off from Dhur Shwer in Mount Lebanon. And you're watching WION, World is One.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers.
Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
WION Health Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness: yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy, each uniquely customized